Liana never imagined her life would lead her to the gates of Arthur Harrington, a mansion so silent it almost echoed. At just 25, she had already faced enough storms to last a lifetime. Her mother's death, her father's debts, and a trail of broken promises. When the small-town agency offered her a job as a live-in maid for an old, lonely billionaire, she took it, not out of choice, but survival. The first time she saw Mr. Arthur Harrington, he looked more like a ghost than a man, sitting by the window, staring at nothing, a blanket over his knees. His eyes were sharp but tired, the kind of eyes that had seen too much of life and not enough of love. At first he barely spoke. He just nodded, watched her work, and sometimes coughed to remind her he was still there. Most of the staff avoided him. They said he had a temper, that he didn't like people touching his things. But Liana wasn't like the others. She didn't fear his silence. She greeted him every morning, asked him if he'd eaten, told him stories about her village, about the markets, about silly things that made him smile again after years of bitterness. Days turned into weeks. The mansion slowly came alive. She played old jazz records for him, rearranged his books, and even dusted off his late wife's piano, the one no one had touched since she passed. He began to sit beside her while she played softly, and one evening he said something no one had heard from him in years. "You have a light in you, girl, a kind of sunshine this house forgot." From that day he called her Sunshine. For a while they found peace in routine, her laughter, his quiet stories. But one rainy evening, while cleaning his study, Liana discovered something strange. A dusty, locked box hidden behind a stack of old ledgers. It wasn't like the rest of the house. It looked personal. She didn't open it, but curiosity lingered. The next morning, she asked him about it. His hand froze mid-air. His expression changed. Sorrow clouded his face. He whispered, "That box holds my biggest regret and my final wish."
He told her about Evelyn, the woman he once loved. 70 years ago, they were supposed to marry, but his family forced him to choose wealth over love. He obeyed. Evelyn wrote him one last letter, but he never read it. He kept it locked away, afraid it might say she had forgiven him. "I didn't deserve her forgiveness," he said, eyes wet. A week later, Mr. Harrington collapsed. The doctors said his heart was giving out. That night, he called for Liana. His voice was weak, but steady. "Sunshine, find Evelyn, or whatever remains of her. When you do, open that letter for me." Liana promised. The next morning, he was gone, peacefully, still holding her hand. The mansion felt emptier than ever. The ticking clock, the echo of his voice, even the scent of his favorite tea, all lingered like ghosts that refused to leave. But she remembered his words. Find Evelyn, or whatever remains of her. And so she did. Days turned into weeks. She searched through every drawer, every box, every old newspaper she could find. She followed trails that led to nowhere. Dead numbers, forgotten streets, burned-out homes. Until one morning, in a pile of yellow documents, she found it, a name scribbled on a faded envelope. Evelyn Matthews. Below it, an address to a nursing home 2 towns away. Liana's heart pounded as she boarded the bus. The journey felt endless, the kind that stretches time itself. Rain drizzled against the window as if the sky knew she was carrying more than just a box. She was carrying someone's unfinished story. When she arrived, a nurse led her through quiet corridors that smelled of lavender and memory. At the end of the hall sat a woman by the window, thin, elegant, her white hair glowing in the sunlight. "Are you Evelyn Matthews?" she asked softly. The woman turned slowly. Her eyes, sharp yet kind, studied Liana for a long moment. "I used to be," she said with a faint smile. "Who's asking?" When she mentioned Mr. Harrington, Evelyn froze. Her frail hands trembled. "You said Harrington." Liana nodded and placed the dusty box on her lap. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears before she even opened it. The box creaked softly, as if it had been waiting for this moment. Inside lay an envelope, sealed, untouched for 70 years. The paper had yellowed, but the words were still alive. Her trembling fingers broke the seal. She unfolded the letter, and for a moment the world seemed to hold its breath. It read only one line. "If I ever see you again, I'll still choose you, in this life or the next." Evelyn smiled faintly, a single tear sliding down her cheek. He finally opened his heart, just a little too late. Then she reached into her pocket, pulled out a folded paper, and handed it to Liana. "If he's gone, tell him I waited, and I forgive him." 2 days later, Liana visited the cemetery. The sun was setting, washing the tombstones in gold. She knelt by Mr. Harrington's grave and placed both letters there, his and Evelyn's. Her voice shook as she whispered, "She forgave you. She never stopped waiting." But as she turned to leave, something caught her eye. The tombstone beside his. She leaned closer. Evelyn Matthews. Date of death, 2 years ago. Her heart stopped. That couldn't be right. She just met Evelyn. The air grew colder. The flowers around her swayed, though there was no wind. A faint scent of lavender, the same as in the nursing home, filled the air. And then a whisper brushed her ear. "Thank you, sunshine." Liana froze. She turned. No one was there. But on the grave, where she'd placed the letters, the box was gone. That night, back in the mansion, Liana entered the study to tidy up. On Mr. Harrington's desk lay the wooden box, open. Inside, both letters rested neatly, side by side, and beneath them, a small photograph she'd never seen before. Mr. Harrington and Evelyn, young and smiling, standing under a tree. The same tree from the cemetery. She touched the photo, trembling. And as the clock struck midnight, the candles flickered, once, twice, and a soft piano melody began to play from the empty room next door. Some souls leave behind more than memories. Some leave unfinished promises that refuse to die. The piano music drifted through the silent mansion, soft aching and familiar. Liana froze at the foot of the staircase. The sound was coming from Mr. Harrington's old study, but the piano there had been closed for weeks. Her pulse quickened. She stepped closer, her footsteps echoing against the marble floor. Each note of the melody carried something: grief, love, regret. When she pushed the door open, the music stopped. The room was empty. Only the window curtains moved gently, as if someone had just left. On the piano lay the same photograph she had seen: Evelyn and Mr. Harrington smiling under the oak tree. But now there was something new, written on the back in shaky handwriting: "If you find her, you'll find yourself." That night, Liana couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the tombstone. Evelyn Matthews, died 2 years ago. If Evelyn had truly died, who did she meet at the nursing home? Who touched her hand, cried at the letter, and gave her that note? She called the nursing home the next morning. When she asked for Evelyn Matthews, the nurse paused. "I'm sorry. No one by that name has been here for years." Liana's throat dried. "That can't be. I just spoke to her." The nurse's voice softened. "Miss, that wing has been closed since 2021, after Mrs. Matthews passed." The call disconnected, and for a long time, she just stood there, phone trembling in her hand. Later that evening, Liana went back to the study. Something about the place felt alive. As she wiped the dust from the shelves, she noticed faint markings on the floor, scratches near the old piano. She pushed it slightly, and behind it, a hidden wooden door came into view. She hesitated, then pulled the handle. It opened into a narrow corridor leading to a small, dimly lit room. Inside were dozens of old letters, sketches, and journals, all written by Mr. Harrington. But what caught her attention was a portrait on the wall of a young woman. The nameplate beneath it read, "Clara Matthews." Liana's heart skipped. Clara? Not Evelyn. She flipped open a journal beside the portrait and froze. "Evelyn was my wife's twin sister. I married one, but I loved the other." The entries grew darker, filled with guilt and longing. He had married Evelyn's twin, Clara, out of duty, but his heart never left the real Evelyn. When Clara died, he tried to reach out to Evelyn, but she vanished.
The last time he saw her was under that same oak tree. She said she could never forgive me, yet she waited. If she ever returns, maybe I can rest. Liana's hands trembled as she read the final page. "To whoever finds this, tell her I kept her name on every prayer. And if she forgives me, let me see her once more, in any form." A cold breeze swept through the corridor. The candle flickered. Liana turned, and for a split second she saw someone standing in the doorway. A woman, old, graceful, smiling. Evelyn. And then, gone. The next morning, the lawyer called. Mr. Harrington's will had been read. Liana was requested to return to the mansion one final time. In the lawyer's hands was a small sealed envelope addressed to her. "To my sunshine." She opened it slowly. Inside was a note and a single old key. You brought light to a dying soul and peace to one that never left. The house and everything in it now belongs to you. Use it well. H. Tears filled her eyes. As she stood in the grand hall, she felt the warmth of sunlight on her face, and for a moment she could almost see them both, Mr. Harrington and Evelyn, hand in hand, walking toward the garden, smiling. And just as they disappeared beyond the roses, the piano began to play again, soft, distant, and peaceful. Liana whispered, "Rest now. You both finally found each other.